Untouchables or the Children of India's Ghetto by Babasaheb Ambedkar. Part 4, Chapter 13, Problem of Discrimination. To the untouchables, the problem of discrimination in order of seriousness is only next to the problem of recovering their manhood. The discrimination against the untouchables is practiced by the Hindus on a scale the extent of which it is impossible for an outsider to imagine. There is no field of life in which the untouchables and the Hindus come into competition and in which the former is not subjected to discrimination. It is also of the most virulent type. In the matter of social relationship, it takes the form of barriers against dancing, bathing, eating, drinking, wrestling, worshipping. It puts a ban on all common cycles of participation. In the use of public facilities, the spirit of discrimination manifests itself in the exclusion of untouchables from schools, wells, temples, and means of conveyance. Public administration is most deeply drenched by the spirit of discrimination against the untouchables. It has affected law courts, government departments, cooperative banks, and particularly the police. Discrimination against untouchables in the manner of securing land, credit, jobs exist in the most rampant form. It is in service that discrimination shows itself most strongly. Though there are no regulations, there are well recognized rules which govern the entry and promotion of the untouchables in the matter of service. Most often, an untouchable will not get an entry. Whole departments are closed to them. The weaving side of the textile mills, the whole of army is closed to the untouchables. If did, there is a well set limit beyond which the untouchable may not rise, no matter what is efficiency or length of service. The principle in general is maintained that the untouchables shall not be placed in administrative authority over the Hindus. The consequence is that unless some entire branch of service is turned over the untouchables, there are very few posts of consequence which the untouchables are allowed to fill. To put it concretely, the only field of service in which there is no discrimination against the untouchables is scavenging. There is no need for discrimination in this field because the whole of it is made over to the untouchables, and there is no competition from the Hindus. Even here, discrimination steps in the matter of higher posts. All unclean work is done by the untouchable, but all supervisory posts which carry higher salary and which do not involve contact with filth are all filled by Hindus. In this situation, rights of citizenship cannot mean the rights of the untouchables. Government of the people and for the people cannot mean government for the untouchables. Equal opportunity for all cannot mean equal opportunity for the untouchables. Equal rights for all cannot mean equal rights for the untouchables. All over the country, in every nook and corner, the untouchable faces handicaps, suffers discrimination, is meted injustices, and to the untouchables, the most privileged people in India. The extent to which this is true is known only to the untouchables who labor under the disadvantages. This discrimination is the strongest barrier against the untouchables. It prevents them from rising out of it. It has made the life of the untouchables one of constant fear of one thing or another, of unemployment, assault, persecution, etc. It is a life of insecurity. There is another form of discrimination which, though subtle, is nonetheless real. Under it, a systematic attempt will be made to lower the dignity and status of a meritorious untouchable. A Hindu leader would be described merely as a great Indian leader. No one would describe him as the leader of the Kashmiri Brahmin, even though he be one. If a leader who happens to be an untouchable is to be referred to, he will be described as so, and as the leader of the untouchables. A Hindu doctor would be described as a great Indian doctor. No one would describe him as a younger, even though he may be one. If a doctor happens to be an untouchable doctor, he would be referred to as so and so, the untouchable doctor. A Hindu singer would be described as a great Indian singer. If the same person happens to be an untouchable, he would be described as an untouchable singer. A Hindu wrestler would be described as a great Indian gymnast. If he happens to be an untouchable, he would be recognized as an untouchable gymnast. This type of discrimination has its origin in the Hindu view that the untouchables are an inferior people, and however qualified, the great men are only great among the untouchables. They can never be greater nor even equal to the great men among the Hindus. This type of discrimination, though social in character, is no less galling than economic discrimination. Discrimination is merely another form and name for the absence of freedom. For, as Mr. Tawney says, there is no such thing as freedom in the market, divorced from the realities of a specific time and place. Whatever else it may or may not imply, it involves the power of choice between alternatives, a choice which is real, not merely nominal, between alternatives, which exists in fact, not only in paper. It means, in short, the ability to do or refrain from doing definite things at a definite moment, in definite circumstances, or it means nothing at all. Because a man is most a man when he thinks, wills, and acts. Freedom deserves the outline things which poets have said about it, but as a part of the prose of everyday life, it is quite practical and realistic. Every individual possesses certain requirements ranging from the material necessities of existence to the need to express himself in speech and writing, to share in the conduct of affairs of common interest, and to worship God in his own way, or to refrain from worshipping him, the satisfaction of which it is necessary to him, opportunity secured by him. Reduced to its barest essential, his freedom consists in the opportunity secured by him within the limits set by nature and the enjoyment of similar opportunities by his fellows to take the action needed to order to ensure that these requirements are fulfilled. It is not my mention and my intention to add yet another catalogue of essential rights to the liberties of such lists which already exist, but these are two observations which apply to all of them. In the first place, if the rights are to be an effective guarantee of freedom, they must not be merely formed, like the rights of all who can afford it, to dine at the Ritz. They must be such that, whenever the occasion arises to exercise them, they can in fact be exercised. The rights to vote and to combine, if not wholly valueless, are obviously attenuated when the use of the former, I mean evictions, and of the latter, the sack, the right to the free choice of an occupation if the expenses of entering of repression are prohibitive, the right to justice if no man can pay for it, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness if the environment is such as to ensure that a considerable proportion of those born will die within 12 months, and that the happiness investments of the remainder are a gambling stock. In the second place, the rights which are essential to freedom must be such as to secure the liberties of all, not merely of a minority. Some sage has remarked that marriage would not be regarded as a national institution if, while 5% of the population were polygamous, the majority passed their lives unsolved and unencumbered by husbands or wives. The same is true of freedom. Society in which some groups can do much what they please, while others can do little of what they ought to, may have virtues of its own, but freedom is not one of them. It is far from free, in fact, and only insofar as all the elements composing it are able, in fact, and not merely in theory, to make the most of their powers, to grow to their full stature, to do what they conceive to be their duty, and since liberty should not be too austere to have their fling when they feel like it. Insofar as the opportunity to lead a life worthy of human beings is restricted to a minority, what is commonly described as freedom would more probably be described as privilege. The discriminations against the untouchables are merely the reflections of that deep and strong Hindu sentiment which is carried over in law and administration, which justifies the making of distinction between the Hindus and the untouchables to the disadvantage of the untouchable. Those discriminations have their roots in fear of the Hindus that in a free field the untouchables may rise above the prescribed station in life and become a menace to the Hindu social order, the cardinal principle of which is the maintenance of Hindu superiority and Hindu domination over the untouchables. So long as the Hindu social order lasts, discrimination against the untouchables continues to exist. The end.